Talon 7 descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Fire wrapped around its armor, burning bright against the darkening sky. People across the world looked up and watched, knowing that their savior was coming home. Inside the cockpit, Soong felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. The battle was over. The enemy was gone. But victory had a strange emptiness to it. He had been asleep for 800 years, and in that time, everyone he knew had died. His family, his friends, his fellow pilots. They were all dust now, memories lost to time. "Soong," Myra said softly, "your vital signs show elevated stress. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," he lied. "Just tired. You've been awake for less than 2 days. Your body should not be tired." Soong smiled despite himself. Mira had always been honest, sometimes painfully so. "It's not my body that's tired, Mira. It's everything else." They landed in a field outside what used to be Old Seoul. The ground shook when Talon 7's feet touched earth. People had gathered from everywhere, forming a massive crowd that stretched to the horizon. Soldiers, civilians, children, elders, everyone had come to see the hero who had saved them. The prototype kneeled, and its chest opened to allow the pilot to exit. Soong climbed out slowly, his legs unsteady after hours of piloting. The cool air hit his face, carrying smells he'd almost forgotten. Rain, grass, life. Dr. Yuna was waiting for him at the base of the machine. She looked older somehow, more tired. The last few days had been hard on everyone. "You did it," she said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "You saved us all." "I did what I was made to do," Soong replied. He looked at the crowd, at all the faces staring at him with wonder and gratitude. "I just wish I didn't have to." Commander Hannah pushed through the crowd, followed by a group of officials in formal clothing. They were members of the World Council, the leaders of humanity. They looked nervous, uncertain how to approach this man from another age. "Pilot Soong," Hannah said, stopping a respectful distance away. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I want to thank you. Without you, we would all be dead or enslaved. Thank me by never forgetting," Soong said. His voice was quiet but carried across the silent crowd. "Thank me by remembering what happened today. Not just the victory, but the lesson." "What lesson?" One of the council members asked. Sung turned to face them directly. His eyes held 800 years of war and loss. "You chose peace. That was good. Peace is precious and should be protected. But you forgot that protection requires strength. You threw away your weapons and hoped that the universe would be kind to you." He gestured at the sky, where the light of distant stars was just becoming visible. "The universe is not kind. There are things out there that don't care about your hopes or your dreams. They only care about power. And if you don't have power, you become prey." The crowd was silent. Many people looked uncomfortable. They had been taught all their lives that war was evil, that weapons were wrong. Hearing these words from the man who had just saved them was confusing. "I'm not telling you to become warriors," Soong continued. "I'm not telling you to conquer or to dominate. But you need to be ready. You need to have defenders who can protect you when the darkness comes. You need to remember that peace is not the absence of strength. It's what strength allows you to build." Yuna stepped forward. "What will you do now? Will you stay with us?" Soong looked at Talon 7, still kneeling behind him like a faithful guardian. The machine had been his home, his partner, his purpose for so long. But that was in another life, a life that ended 800 years ago. "I don't know," he admitted. "Everything I knew is gone. Everyone I loved is dead. I'm a stranger in my own world." "You're not a stranger," Yuna said firmly. "You're a hero. And more than that, you're one of us. You're human. This is your home as much as anyone's." Soong felt something stir in his chest. an emotion he had not felt in a very long time. Hope, maybe. Or perhaps just the simple desire to belong somewhere again. The Vorath will return eventually, he said. Or someone else will come. When that day arrives, Earth needs to be ready. I can help with that. I can train new pilots. I can help rebuild your defenses. I can make sure that humanity never forgets how to protect itself. Hannah nodded. We would be honored to have you. The World Council has already discussed this. We want to create a new defense program based on the old technologies. We want you to lead it. Lead? Soong almost laughed. I'm a pilot, not a leader. You're both, Eunice said. You always were. Why do you think they chose you for Talon 7? It wasn't just your skill. It was your heart. You care about people, Soong. That's what makes you more than just a weapon. Soong was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the faces around him, old and young, hopeful and afraid. They were counting on him. Not just to fight, but to guide them. To help them become something they had forgotten how to be. All right, he finally said. I'll stay. I'll help. But I have conditions. Name them, Hannah said. First, we don't build an army of conquest. We build defenders, nothing more. The weapons I teach you to create will only be used to protect, never to attack. Agreed. Second, we never forget what peace means. The goal is always to return to peace, to build a world where weapons like me are no longer needed. Agreed. Third, Soong paused, his voice softening. I want to visit my family's graves. I want to know what happened to the people I left behind. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. I've already researched that. I can take you there whenever you're ready. Soong nodded slowly. After 800 years, he would finally get to say goodbye. The crowd began to disperse as evening fell. Officials hurried away to make plans. Soldiers started securing the area around Talon 7, but many people stayed, simply wanting to be near the hero who had saved them. Soong walked to the edge of the field and looked up at the stars. They were the same stars he had seen in his old life, the same patterns his mother had taught him as a child. Some things, at least, had not changed. Myra, he said quietly, knowing the machine could still hear him. Yes, Soong? Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for being there when I woke up. I will always wait for you, Mira replied. That is my purpose. And my choice. Soong smiled. Perhaps he was not as alone as he thought. He had Myra. He had Yuna and Hannah and the others. He had a world that needed him, a future that was worth protecting. Far away, in the cold void of space, the remnants of the Vorath fleet limped toward home. Admiral Rock sat in his command chair, staring at nothing. He had lost 2,000 ships. He had lost millions of warriors. And he had gained a new understanding of fear. What do we tell the Emperor? His second officer asked quietly. Awoke was silent for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice hollow and broken. We tell him the truth. We tell him that humanity is not extinct. We tell him that they have awakened something terrible. And we tell him that if we ever try to attack Earth again, we will all die. The officer nodded grimly. Do you think they'll believe us? They'll have to. Rock looked at his hands, still shaking from the memory of battle. Because if they don't, if they send another fleet, that pilot will come for us. He'll come to our worlds, our homes, our families. And he'll end everything. The Vorath had dreamed of revenge for 800 years. Now, those dreams were ashes. In their place was only one thought, one lesson that would be passed down through generations. Never anger the humans. Never threaten their world. Never awaken their warriors. Because when humanity remembered how to make war, the galaxy itself trembled. And on Earth, in a field of grass and flowers, a soldier from another age finally allowed himself to rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new battles to fight. But tonight, for the first time in 8 centuries, Soong was home. The forgotten prototype stood watch beside him, its eyes glowing softly in the darkness. Guardian and guardian, machine and man, they faced the future together. Humanity had remembered, and the galaxy would never forget. Space burned with the fire of 1,000 explosions. Ships that had traveled across the galaxy to conquer Earth now tumbled through the void as broken wreckage. The Vorath fleet, once a perfect formation of death and power, had become a chaos of fear and desperation. And at the center of it all, Talon 7 moved like a storm given form. Soong piloted the prototype with the skill of 800 years of experience. His body moved without thinking, reacting to threats before they fully formed. His mind was connected to Myra, sharing thoughts and calculations faster than speech. Together, they were a perfect killing machine. "Enemy battleship ahead," Myra announced. "Charging main weapons. Target the reactor core," Soong said. "One shot, clean kill." The battleship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long and covered with armor that could survive asteroid impacts. It had survived 100 battles and killed thousands of enemies. Its captain, a veteran of 50 years of warfare, was screaming orders at his crew. None of it mattered. Talon 7's main cannon fired once. A beam of energy that existed between dimensions cut through space and struck the battleship's heart. The reactor exploded instantly, consuming the ship in a ball of blue fire. 2,000 Vorath died without even understanding what had hit them. Soong was already moving to the next target. High Admiral Rock watched from his command ship, his gray face pale with fear. He had never seen anything like this. In his entire career, he had never encountered a force that could not be overwhelmed by numbers. The humans in the old war had been dangerous, yes. They had fought hard and killed many Vorath. But this was something else entirely. "All ships, concentrate fire on that machine," he screamed into the communication system. "Everything we have, now." 500 ships turned their weapons toward Talon 7. The barrage was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Missiles by the thousands, laser beams by the hundreds, plasma bolts that could melt through steel. The entire sector of space became a wall of destruction. Soong smiled. "Myra, activate the phase shield." The prototype shield was not like normal protection. It did not block attacks or absorb energy. Instead, it shifted Talon 7 slightly out of phase with reality. The weapon's fire passed through them like they were ghosts, hitting nothing but empty space. "Phase shield holding," Myra reported. "Enemy weapons having 0 effect." "Good. Now let's show them what real power looks like." Talon 7's chest opened, revealing a weapon that had been sealed for 8 centuries. It was called the Void Lance, and it was the most destructive weapon humanity had ever created, drawing power directly from the dimensional rift that powered the prototype. It could fire a beam that erased matter from existence itself. Soong aimed at the center of the Vorath formation and fired. The beam cut through space, like a knife through water. Everything it touched simply ceased to exist. Ships, debris, even the light itself, all of it vanished into nothingness. The beam traveled for 5 kilometers before Soong stopped it, leaving a perfect cylinder of empty space where dozens of ships had been. Silence fell over the battle. The surviving Vorath stared at their screens, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. Their weapons were useless. Their numbers meant nothing. They were facing something that should not exist. "We can't win," one captain said over the communication channel. His voice was broken, defeated. "Nothing can stop that thing." "Shut your mouth," Admiral Rock screamed. "We are the Vorath Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will not be defeated by one machine." But even as he spoke, He knew it was a lie. The reports kept coming in. 500 ships destroyed. 600. 700. The prototype moved through his fleet like a farmer harvesting grain, cutting down everything in its path. Nothing could touch it. Nothing could slow it. In the cockpit of Talon 7, Soong felt the rhythm of battle flowing through him. He had done this so many times before. In the old war, he had destroyed entire fleets single-handedly. He had become legend, a monster that the Vorath whispered about in fear. They had called him the Deathwalker, the one who ends. Now, after 800 years, they would remember why. Incoming transmission from the enemy command ship. Myra announced. Sung raised an eyebrow. Put it through. The Admiral Rock's face appeared on his screen. The alien looked old suddenly, old and tired. The arrogance that had filled his voice during the first transmission was gone. What are you? Rock asked. His voice was quiet, almost pleading. I'm a soldier, Soong answered. Just like you. The difference is that I'm fighting for something worth protecting. We came here for justice, Rock said. Your ancestors killed our people. They burned our worlds. We have the right to revenge. Soong shook his head. You don't have the right to anything. You came here to murder innocent people who never harmed you. People who wanted nothing but peace. Whatever crimes my ancestors committed, these people are not guilty. Then stop fighting, Rock said. Surrender, and we'll spare your planet. You can save billions of lives. No, Sung's voice was cold and final. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take whatever ships you have left and leave this system. You're going to return to your empire and tell them what you saw here. And you're going to make sure that no Vorath ever comes near Earth again. And if we refuse, then I will kill every last one of you. And when I'm done here, I'll take this machine to your homeworld and do the same thing there. I've done it before. I'll do it again. The communication ended. Rock stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. He looked at the tactical display, at the numbers that told a story of complete annihilation. Of the 3,000 ships he had brought to Earth, fewer than 1,000 remained. And the prototype was still fighting, still killing, still untouched. Admiral, his second officer said carefully, we need to retreat. If we stay, we all die. Rock wanted to argue. He wanted to order another attack, to sacrifice everything in one final desperate assault. But he was not a fool. He knew when a battle was lost. He knew when survival was the only victory possible. All ships, he said slowly, each word tasting like poison, begin withdrawal. We're returning to the Empire. The surviving Vorath ships turned and fled. Their engines burned bright as they accelerated away from Earth, away from the nightmare that had destroyed their invasion. They would carry stories of this day for generations. They would remember the Deathwalker. Sung watched them go. He felt no triumph, no satisfaction. War was never something to celebrate. It was only something to survive. Enemy forces retreating, Mira confirmed. Should we pursue? No. Let them go. Let them tell their story. Understood. Returning to Earth, Talon 7 turned away from the debris field that had once been a fleet and began the journey home. Behind them, the stars burned cold and silent, witnesses to a battle that would become legend. On Earth, the people watched their screens in shock. They had seen the whole thing through satellite feeds and distant cameras. They had seen one machine face an entire fleet and win. They had seen the power that their ancestors had created and hidden away. Commander Hana stood in her control room, tears streaming down her face. He did it, she whispered. He actually did it. The world erupted in celebration. People poured into the streets, laughing and crying. They hugged strangers and shouted at the sky. For the first time in generations, humanity remembered what it felt like to be warriors. but deep down, Hannah knew that this was only the beginning. The Vorath would return eventually, or some other enemy would come. The universe was vast and dangerous, and peace could only last as long as the strength to protect it. They would need more weapons. They would need more soldiers. They would need to remember everything they had forgotten. The age of innocence was over. The age of warriors had returned. The cockpit of Talon 7 was exactly as Soong remembered. Screens surrounded him on all sides, showing data and readings in languages that modern humanity had forgotten. The pilot's seat molded to his body like a second skin, connecting him to the machine through 1,000 invisible threads. When he placed his hands on the control panels, he felt the prototype's power flow through him like blood. "Hello, old friend," he whispered. The machine responded with a low hum that vibrated through his bones. Talon 7 was more than just metal and weapons. It had a mind of its own, a consciousness created from technologies that no longer existed. It remembered everything: the battles, the victories, the sacrifices. And it remembered its pilot. Sung closed his eyes and let the connection deepen. Information flooded his brain: the current state of the machine, its power levels, its weapon systems. Everything was at full capacity. The engineers who sealed them away had done their job perfectly. After 800 years, Talon 7 was ready to fight. "Status report," he commanded. A soft voice filled the cockpit. It was female, calm and precise. This was Mira, the machine's artificial intelligence. All systems operational. Power core at 100%. Weapons charged and ready. Hull integrity perfect. "Welcome back, Pilot Soong. I have missed you." Soong smiled. "I've missed you too, Myra. What's our situation?" The Vorath fleet consists of 3,417 vessels, Mira reported. 12 dreadnoughts, 98 battleships, 412 cruisers, and the remainder are destroyers and support craft. Estimated time until weapons range, 32 hours. "That's a lot of ships," Soong said. "Yes," Myra agreed. "Would you like me to calculate our chances of survival?" "No." Soong opened his eyes and gripped the controls. Survival was never the point. Victory is. Above them, the bunker ceiling began to split open. The old mechanism still worked, pushing aside tons of rock and metal to create a path to the surface. Sunlight, real sunlight, poured into the chamber for the first time in centuries. Dr. Yuna and her team watched from a safe distance. They saw the prototype rise, its massive form blocking the light. They felt the ground shake as it took its first steps. They heard the roar of engines that burned with power beyond understanding. "He's really doing it," June breathed. "He's really going to fight them alone." "He's not alone," Yuna said quietly. "He has his machine, and he has us. All of humanity is with him, even if we can't fight beside him." Talon 7 climbed out of the bunker and stood on the surface of Old Seoul. The ruins of the ancient city stretched out in all directions. Rain was still falling, washing over the prototype's armor like tears. Soong looked up at the sky, at the dark shadows of enemy ships visible through the clouds. "How does it feel?" Myra asked. "Like coming home," Soong answered. "And like saying goodbye at the same time." He activated the communication system and connected to Earth's defense station. Commander Hana's face appeared on one of his screens. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "You're the pilot?" she asked. "You're really 800 years old?" "Older, technically," Soong said. "But yes, I'm Soong, pilot of Talon 7. I understand you have an invasion problem." Hana almost laughed. The situation was so insane that laughter felt appropriate. Problem is one word for it. We have no weapons, no ships, no defenses. And you're proposing to fight 3,000 warships with one machine? That's correct. That's suicide. Sung shook his head. Commander, I've fought the Varus before. I've seen what they can do. I've also seen what Talon 7 can do. We were built to end wars, not to fight fair battles. Trust me when I say this. 3,000 ships is not enough to stop us. There was silence on the communication channel. Hannah looked at someone off screen, probably her advisors. Then she turned back to Sung. What do you need from us? She asked. Nothing, Sung said. Just keep your people safe. Keep them away from the battle zone. And when this is over, remember what we were. Remember why humanity created weapons like me. And what was that? Sung's expression grew hard. Because the universe is not kind. Because peace must be protected by strength. Because sometimes, the only way to save everything you love is to become something that loves nothing. The communication ended. Sung took a deep breath and prepared for launch. Talon 7's back opened, revealing a massive engine array that glowed with blue fire. The prototype crouched, gathering energy, building power for the leap into space. Around them, the ruins of Old Sol began to shake and crumble from the force. Launch sequence initiated, Mira announced. All systems ready. Pilot, are you prepared? Sung thought about the world he was leaving behind. He thought about the people he had known 800 years ago, his family, his friends, his fellow pilots. They were all gone now, turned to dust by time. He was the last of his kind, a relic from an age of war. But he was not fighting for the past. He was fighting for the future. For all the children who had never seen war. For all the people who believed that peace was possible. For a world that had forgotten the cost of freedom. I'm ready, he said. Talon-7 launched into the sky like a missile. The force was tremendous, pressing Sung back into his seat with crushing weight. The atmosphere screamed past them as they climbed higher and higher. Blue became black as they left Earth behind and entered the cold silence of space. Varth fleet spread out before them like a wall of death. Thousands of ships, each one bristling with weapons and filled with warriors eager for blood. They detected the prototype immediately. Sensors screamed warnings. Weapons powered up. Communications channels filled with confusion and alarm. In his command ship, High Admiral Rock stared at the single target on his screen. His black eyes narrowed with recognition. A Talon unit, he breathed. Impossible. They were all destroyed. His officers rushed to confirm the reading. The data was unmistakable. The energy signature, the design, the weapons configuration. Everything matched the nightmares from the old war. The monsters that had killed millions of Varth warriors were supposed to be extinct. One machine, Rock said, forcing confidence into his voice. We have 3,000 ships. Destroy it. The nearest 100 ships opened fire. Space lit up with weapons, fire lasers, missiles, plasma bursts, everything the Varth had. The barrage was overwhelming, enough to destroy a planet. But Talon 7 was not a planet. It was something far more dangerous. Sung moved through the fire like a ghost. His hands danced across the controls, guiding the prototype through gaps in the attack that no normal pilot could see. Mira calculated trajectories, predicted enemy fire, and suggested evasive patterns. Together, they were untouchable. Return fire, Sung commanded. Talon-7 single quotes S arms rose, and weapons emerged from hidden compartments. These were not the primitive guns of modern warfare. These were dimensional cannons, phase disruptors, reality-tearers technologies that the galaxy had forgotten. One shot struck a cruiser and erased it from existence. Another shot hit a destroyer and folded it in half like paper. The Varth fleet watched in horror as their ships began to die. What is that thing? One captain screamed over the communication channel. It's death, another answered. It's death come back to finish us. Sung felt no joy in the killing. He felt nothing at all. That was the price of being a Talon pilot. The bonding process that connected him to his machine had removed his fear, his hesitation, his mercy. He was a weapon now, as much as the prototype itself. And weapons did not feel. They only destroyed. First wave eliminated, Mirror reported. Enemy losses, 98 vessels. Ammunition expenditure, minimal. Damage sustained, none. Continue to the next wave. Soong ordered Talon-7 shot forward into the heart of the Vorath fleet. The war had truly begun. The sky over Earth had always been blue. For 800 years, humans had looked up and seen clouds, stars, and the gentle curve of their atmosphere. But on that morning, the sky turned dark with shadows. 3,000 warships blocked the sun. Commander Hana stood in the control room of Earth's Central Defense Station. The station was a joke, really. It had no weapons. It had no shields. It was built for communication and observation, nothing more. Humanity had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten how to make war. And now, war had come to find them. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship," said one of her officers. His name was Tay, a young man with pale skin and frightened eyes. Everyone in the room was frightened. They had never seen anything like this. "Put it on screen," Hana ordered. Her voice was steady, but inside, she was terrified. The main screen flickered to life. A face appeared, not human, but close enough to be disturbing. The Vorath looked like humans in many ways, but their skin was gray, their eyes were completely black, and their teeth were sharp like predators. This one wore golden armor and sat on a throne made of bones. "I am High Admiral Rock of the Vorath Empire," the alien said. His voice was deep and cold. "Your species has lived in peace for too long. You have grown soft and weak. You have forgotten your place in the galaxy." Hana stepped forward. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and a face marked by years of service. She had never fought in a real war, but she had trained her whole life. She had studied the old battles. She knew what the Vorath were capable of. "This is Commander Hana of Earth Defense," she said. "We have no quarrel with your empire. We seek only peace." Admiral Rock laughed. The sound was ugly and cruel. "Peace? Your ancestors killed millions of our warriors. They destroyed our colonies and burned our worlds. We have waited 800 years for our revenge. And now, we are here to take it." The screen showed the Vorath fleet in all its terrible glory. Ships of every size filled the space around Earth. The largest ones were kilometers long, covered with weapons and armor. The smallest ones were still bigger than anything humanity had built in centuries. "You have no fleet," Rock continued. "You have no weapons. You have nothing. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Resist, and we will burn your planet to ash and sell your survivors as slaves." Hana felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her. She looked at her officers. She looked at the screens showing the enemy fleet. She thought about the billions of people on Earth, going about their daily lives, unaware that their world was about to end. How long until they reach weapons range? She asked quietly. 36 hours, Tay answered. "Maybe less." Hana closed her eyes. 36 hours to find a miracle. 36 hours to save humanity. "Send a message to the World Council," she said. "Tell them we need every option on the table." Every option. Far below the surface, in the ancient bunker beneath Old Sol, Dr. Yuna received the same news. She stood before the cryopod, looking at the sleeping pilot inside. The World Council had given her permission. They had given her authority. They had begged her to do whatever was necessary. "Are you sure about this?" June asked. He stood behind her, holding a tablet with the activation codes. "We don't know what will happen. We don't know if he'll even be able to fight. 800 years is a long time. He might be confused. He might be hostile. He might be our only hope," Yuna interrupted. She took a deep breath and entered the first code into the pod's control panel. "Begin the revival sequence." The pod hummed to life. Lights flickered across its surface. The ice that covered the viewing window began to melt, revealing the face of the pilot beneath. His skin was pale but healthy. His breathing was slow and steady. Everything was working perfectly. Minutes passed. The pod's internal systems worked to bring the pilot back to consciousness. His temperature rose. His brain activity increased. His fingers twitched slightly. Then his eyes opened. They were dark brown, almost black. They stared straight ahead for a long moment, seeing nothing. Then they moved, focusing on the figures standing outside the pod. The confusion in those eyes lasted only a second. Then it was replaced by something else. Understanding, awareness, purpose. The pod hissed and opened. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of ancient chemicals. The pilot sat up slowly, his movements stiff but controlled. He looked at his hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. "What year is it?" he asked. His voice was rough from centuries of silence. 3247, Yuna answered. "You've been asleep for 812 years." The pilot soon absorbed this information without visible emotion. He swung his legs out of the pod and stood up. He was tall, taller than Yuna had expected. His body was lean and muscular, preserved perfectly by the cryosleep technology. "Where's the war?" he asked. His eyes scanned the chamber, taking in every detail. They stopped when they found the prototype. Something changed in his expression. Something softened. "The war ended long ago," Yuna said carefully. "But another one is about to begin. The Varth have returned. They have 3,000 ships in orbit. They're going to attack in less than 36 hours. Soong walked toward the prototype. His steps were slow at first, but they became more confident with each stride. When he reached the massive machine, he placed his hand on its leg. The metal seemed to respond, glowing faintly at his touch. 3,000 ships, he repeated quietly. "How many defenders does Earth have?" The silence was answer enough. Sung turned back to face them. His expression was unreadable. "You woke me because you have no other choice." "Yes," Yuna admitted. "I'm sorry. We humanity, we gave up our weapons after the war. We wanted peace. We thought the fighting was over forever." "Peace is good," Soong said. There was no judgment in his voice. "But peace without strength is just waiting to be conquered." He looked up at the prototype again. The machine had been his home, his weapon, his partner for years of war. They had fought together across dozens of star systems. They had killed enemies beyond counting. They had done terrible things in the name of survival. And now, after 8 centuries of sleep, they were needed again. "Can you activate it?" Yuna asked. "Can you still fight?" Soong smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad. "I was made to fight. Talon 7 was made to fight. Together, we are more than just machine and pilot. We are something the galaxy has forgotten." He walked toward a hidden panel in the prototype's leg. His hand pressed against it, and a door slid open, revealing a lift that would carry him to the cockpit. He stepped inside and turned to face them one last time. "Contact your commander," he said. "Tell her that Earth has a defender. Tell her to keep everyone calm. And tell the Varth." He paused, and his smile grew colder. "Tell them that humanity remembers how to make war." The lift closed and soon disappeared into the prototype. Yuna and her team stepped back as the chamber began to shake. The massive machine was waking up. Its eyes lit with a fierce blue glow. Its weapon systems hummed with power that had slept for centuries. The forgotten prototype was awake. and the Varath had no idea what was coming. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight over Old Sol. The ancient city lay in ruins, covered by nature and time. Buildings that once touched the sky now crumbled into dust. Streets that carried millions of people were now empty and silent. This was the forgotten heart of Earth, a place where history slept beneath layers of concrete and metal. Dr. Yuna pulled her jacket tighter as she stepped out of the transport vehicle. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair tied back in a simple knot. At 62 years old, she had spent her entire life studying the old wars. The wars that humanity tried to forget. The wars that almost destroyed everything. "Are you sure this is the place?" asked June, her young assistant. He was barely 25, tall and nervous. He looked at the ruins with fear in his eyes. Nobody came to Old Sol anymore. The radiation was mostly gone, but the memories remained. Yuna nodded slowly. She held an old tablet in her hands. The screen showed a map that was 800 years old. The bunker should be directly below us, about 200 meters underground. Their team consisted of 12 people. Scientists, engineers, and a few soldiers sent by the World Council. Everyone thought Yuna was crazy when she requested this mission. Everyone said the bunker was just a legend. A story parents told their children about the old days when humans fought among the stars. But Yuna knew better. She had found the documents. She had read the classified files that governments had hidden for centuries. Something was buried here. Something that the old world created in desperation. Something that was never meant to be found. The drilling took 4 days. The ground was hard, mixed with old metal and stone. The team worked in shifts, cutting through layer after layer of forgotten history. They found old weapons, broken vehicles, and bones. So many bones. Yuna looked at each discovery with sad eyes. These were the remains of a war that killed billions. On the 5th day, they broke through. The drill suddenly dropped into empty space. The workers shouted and pulled back their equipment. Below them was darkness. Complete and total darkness. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. After 40 years of searching, she had finally found it. They lowered lights into the hole. The beams cut through the darkness and revealed a massive underground chamber. The ceiling was at least 50 meters high. The walls were made of thick metal that still looked new after 8 centuries. And in the center of the chamber, covered in dust and shadows, stood the prototype. Yuna could not speak. She could only stare. The machine was enormous. It stood nearly 40 meters tall, shaped like a human but made of dark metal and strange materials that science had forgotten. Its arms were thick with weapons that Yuna could not recognize. Its chest had a symbol painted in faded red, a circle with a sword through it. The mark of the old Earth Defense Force. "What is that thing?" June whispered. His voice echoed in the chamber. "Talon 7, Yuna answered. Her voice was shaking. The last prototype. The weapon that was never used. The team descended into the chamber using ropes and ladders. Everything was perfectly preserved. The air was cold and still. Lights that had been dead for centuries flickered to life as they approached, reacting to their movement. The old builders had designed this place to last forever. Yuna walked toward the prototype with careful steps. Her eyes moved across every detail, every panel, every weapon mount. The history book said that humanity built 12 prototypes during the First Galactic War. 11 of them were destroyed in battle. The 12th was hidden away, sealed underground, waiting for a day that never came. Until now. "There's something else," called one of the engineers. Her name was Mina, a young woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. She was standing near the base of the prototype, pointing at something hidden in the shadows. Yuna hurried over. Her breath stopped when she saw it, a cryopod. a human cryopod. And inside, frozen in perfect sleep, was a young man. He looked no older than 30. His face was calm and peaceful. He wore a pilot suit made of the same strange material as the prototype. On his chest was the same symbol, the circle with the sword. Around his neck hung a set of metal tags. Yuna leaned closer to read them. The name on the tags was simple. Soon. Pilot, Talon 7. He's alive, Mina said, checking the pod systems. The readings show he's been in cryosleep for exactly 812 years. But his body is perfectly healthy. He could wake up at any moment. Yuna stepped back. Her mind was racing with thoughts and fears. The old record said that the Talon pilots were different. They were not just soldiers. They were chosen for millions for their skills and their minds. They were bonded with their machines in ways that science could not explain. They were weapons themselves. Should we wake him? June asked. Yuna did not answer immediately. She looked at the giant prototype standing silent above them. She looked at the frozen pilot sleeping in his pod. She thought about the world above them. The world that had no armies, no weapons, no defenses. Humanity had chosen peace after the old wars. They had destroyed their weapons and promised to never fight again. But Yuna knew something that the public did not know. She knew why the World Council had approved her mission. She knew why soldiers had been sent with them. Something was coming. Something from the stars. The long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching Earth. A fleet that belonged to the Varith Empire, the enemy that humanity had fought 800 years ago. The war was not over. It had only been paused. Not yet, Yuna finally said. We need to understand what we're dealing with first. We need to study the prototype and its systems. We need to be ready. The team set up their equipment and began their work. They scanned the prototype, analyzed its materials, and tried to understand its weapons. But even with all their technology, they could not make sense of it. The machine used power sources that modern science had forgotten. It had weapons that seemed impossible. It was built using knowledge that humanity had lost when they chose peace. Days passed. Yuna barely slept. She spent every moment studying the prototype and reading the old pilot logs that were stored in its memory banks. She learned about the first Galactic War. She learned about the sacrifices humanity made. She learned about Soong, the young pilot who had volunteered to sleep forever, waiting for a day when Earth might need him again. On the 7th day, her communicator buzzed with an urgent message from the World Council. The Varith fleet had entered the solar system. 3,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a continent. They would reach Earth in 48 hours. Yuna looked at the cryopod. She looked at the sleeping pilot. She knew what had to be done. The forgotten prototype was about to wake up.